Hi everyone, Jacco Carroll here, the founder of NK News. I'm excited to personally invite you to join me and my colleagues on what's going to be an extraordinary journey later this year. It's called the North Korea from a Near Distance Tour, taking place between September 21st to 30th, 2024, along the inter-Korean border here in South Korea. This intimate tour, which is going to be just 20 guests maximum, is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to explore the Korean border with leading specialists in North Korea affairs, such as Dr. Andrei Lankov, myself, Jongmin Kim, and a number of other experts who are going to be joining us, including our very own podcast host, Jacco Zwetsloot, for multi-day segments along the itinerary. Together, we'll be visiting key inter-Korean sites, engaging in daily meetings with experts, and gaining what are going to be unparalleled insights into the DPRK. From the stunning Kumgang Mountains on the east coast to the tensely fortified islands of the west, you'll be seeing North Korea from a truly unique perspective. So, don't miss out on this exclusive chance to cultivate new connections within the North Korea watching community, sharpen your understanding of this fascinating country, and get a great chance to meet some new people who could become lifelong friends, as some of the previous tour participants have done for me. If you want to book, please just simply search on Google North Korea from a Near Distance Tour. That's North Korea from a Near Distance Tour. We should come up as the first result, and you can book from there.
Hello and welcome to the NK News podcast. I'm your host, Jacco Zwetsloot, and today we're doing a special and unusual mini roundtable in the wake of President Vladimir Putin's visit to Pyongyang to meet with Kim Jong Un. I'm currently on vacation overseas and I've just woken up, so there's minimal preparation gone into this podcast, and I'm joined from the NK News studio via StreamYard by my colleagues Anton Sokolin and Colin Zwirko. Anton and Colin, welcome on the show.
Yeah. Hello.
So I missed a lot while I was asleep, but basically I do know that Vladimir Putin visited Pyongyang and had a meeting there with Kim Jong Un. It's hard to miss that even while overseas. Let's start with Anton. Can you give us the basics? Why was Putin in Pyongyang?
Well, definitely Putin gave us a lot to think about. It was a very interesting visit. Of course, it came with a bit of a delay because Putin is very known for his tardiness. The visit was very much anticipated, and I think it was prepped well in advance. But the main takeaway is the result of the meeting, right? It's not just about Putin going somewhere. It's not a pro forma visit. It's actually the agreement that the two leaders signed in Pyongyang, and this agreement practically elevates bilateral ties between North Korea and Russia to a new level, I would even say to the level of a military alliance. Going into specifics, one of the articles specifically stipulates that
one of the articles of the agreement, you mean?
Of the agreement, yeah, that they signed, and it was recently released. It stipulates that one of them has to step in for the other one in the case of an external attack. And that speaks volumes about their growing partnership, I would say.
Yes, I've actually been sent the original text in the Korean version. I haven't had a chance to read it of the agreement, but there are a total of 17 at the moment, 8, 9, 20, 21, counting all the clauses here, 23 clauses. It's quite a long agreement. Have you had a chance to look at all of it so far, Anton?
Of course, we went through the entire agreement, at least the Korean part. We are still awaiting the Russian version of it, but the key points that definitely stood out, at least for me, was the defense agreement and their plans to establish or deepen their military cooperation. And I would say there was a vague clause relating to that Russia would refrain from actions that would somehow infringe on North Korea's sovereignty. And I suppose that vaguely refers to the sanctions evasion situation that Russia and North Korea got themselves into.
So, yeah, that one was talking about not entering into international agreements or documents that it was basically saying Russia cannot sign on to any new sanctions at the UN level or multilateral level against North Korea. And so it doesn't sound like it's retroactive, although Russia has already signaled it's retroactively stopping its enforcement of the sanctions that it signed on to back in 2017 and before. And on the military article, which was Article 4, I think, it said, just to add to what Anton said, it requires some military assistance in the case that one country is invaded or attacked, so that the language is very careful not to say if they start a war. But Russia considers the Ukraine the aggressor, even though Russia invaded Ukraine. And it also, while it requires the other side to give military assistance, it also uses some careful language like, and sorry, I don't have the document right in front of me, but it's like to the best of their ability or to their, as far as they can go. So it leaves some wiggle room.
It's a very good point, actually, that Colin just raised. Indeed, even our experts that we talked to raised the same issue, is that, well, there is limits, or probably there is a certain limitations on how far Russia or North Korea are ready to go in their support of one another. And that's why probably they pick this very careful language, not to say that they're going to jump into the new conflict right away.
But it does sound like the missiles being sent to Russia right now from North Korea, that's consistent with these articles. So it kind of creates this foundation for military activity support. Yeah, that's already happening.
Okay. So even though it's signed this week, the current war on Ukraine is what grandfathered into that North Korea is now expected under the new alliance to do what it can to help Russia.
That's all guesswork at this point. I mean, we can draw a connection between the two, the military the assistance that's already been going on since last year openly, plus this new document. But as far as them actually coming out and then explicitly using this document as the foundation to then admit all of the activity that's been going on, we haven't seen that yet. But, it's been not even 24 hours. So,
but I'll have to add that the Russian public is already being prepared, I think, for this scenario, as a Russian state media been consistently featuring this Russian political pundits, I would say, who speculate on the need of either providing missile technology or whatever technology to North Korea to strike the US. And they also discuss the probability of dispatching North Korean soldiers to Donbass. So,
oh wow, that'll be interesting to see if that happens. Hey, I'm interested, to what extent is this clause, this Article 4 of the agreement, similar to North Korea's already existing mutual defense treaty with China?
Well, that we'll probably have to double check with the text. I would definitely say that Article 4 does resemble a similar clause in the very old 1961 Soviet DPRK treaty that was signed like more than half a century ago, and it practically repeats the same language verbatim, but with a slight hint of like modern language, let's say, and that has been actually pointed out by one of our experts. Please check out our article on that.
That was a 1961 treaty, was it?
1961, yeah.
Okay, because it was also in 1961 that the Sino-North Korean Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation, and Mutual Assistance was signed. So those two both go back to the same period there. And I'm looking to see if I can find, while I'm talking to the text of the Mutual Defense Clause. I haven't been able to find that part yet.
Well, that's probably another task that we'll have to explore.
Yeah, and do Russia and China have any kind of a similar agreement between themselves?
As far as I know, China and Russia limit themselves to economic cooperation without formally announcing or proclaiming their military alliance. Of course, they call themselves sometimes, well, at least the Russian side, let's say, the Russian politicians sometimes do resort to this rhetoric, calling the other partner their ally, but de facto, or at least de jure, they do not have any legal agreement that would say that they are strategic or military allies.
Right. It'll be interesting to see if the three countries, and maybe some other ones, maybe Iran, maybe Syria, if they going forward, try to portray this as a solid and legally justified bloc to counter the so-called unipolar world? I mean, is this the kind of period that we're entering into?
This is really this is great that you actually brought this up, because if we take a look at Putin's recent speech, it was like a week ago, where he attended the Russian foreign ministry before going to North Korea, and one of his so at that time he rolled out his peace proposal for Ukraine, right? Demanding the territorial gains, demanding the withdrawal of Ukrainian forces. But one other thing that he also mentioned was that he put forward this proposal of creating a Eurasia-wide security framework, something like a super extended NATO. It was quite vague, but that's what he was referring to. And he suggested that all the countries that would be willing to join it could join it. And it really does feel like North Korea is just a starting point of that. But of course, it's a speculation. I don't know.
Wow, gosh, that is fascinating. I did see already yesterday that one American expert called this the greatest threat to American security since the Korean War. Did you both see that?
I saw that, but
that was Victor Cha that said that, previous podcast guest. It sounded a little bit hyperbolic to me. What's your take on it, Colin?
Well, you only have to look as far as U.S. foreign policy to judge whether or not. Well, if that's true, then the U.S. is not in a good place, because they do not prioritize the North Korea problem, but they certainly prioritize the Russia problem. So I don't know. It's not a good thing. And I think some experts, including Victor Cha, are saying that this is kind of a moment that the U.S. has to pay attention to maybe pivot their foreign policy to take it more seriously and actually come out with a new strategy for North Korea, which the Biden administration has sort of adopted the strategic patience sort of view, right? So we'll have to see. It's too early, and I think all of the reactions are still kind of coming out slowly, and no indication yet of some kind of emergency meetings by various allies to address it. But we might see that in the next week.
Okay, what's the reaction in South Korea so far? How is the government of President Yoon responding to this?
I think that's also too early, because as last I saw, our colleague Jungmin said that there was supposed to be a national security meeting. Yoon was supposed to convene a national security meeting today, but I do not know the results of that yet.
Right. Wow. There's so many things are in play right now. Now, I'm interested also in looking a little bit at the optics of the visit itself. Anton already mentioned at the start that Vladimir Putin is known for being a late arriver. And he came quite late. What time did he arrive in Pyongyang, Anton?
Extremely early in the morning, like around 3 a.m. And prior to that, it's important to point it out that North Korea was just one of his stops on the way of on his let's say wider Asia trip, because before that he just visited the Russian Far Eastern region, and he spent, I would say, some unnecessary long amount of time there, because his meetings got extended. He went to talk to the crowds, and only after his let's say formal and informal meetings were done, he decided to hop on his plane and go to North Korea, which kind of gave a bit of optics to the situation, speaking, let's say, characterizing Putin's attitude toward North Korea. And then we also know that after his meetings in North Korea, he went to Vietnam, right? So it's either signaling that he first prioritizes his domestic affairs and doesn't really care about North Korea, or it means that he puts North Korea on a par with Vietnam and tries to build partnership with them equally. So, of course, it's a speculation, and it remains to be seen how it's going to pan out.
So approximately how much time was he in Pyongyang for? It wasn't a full day, was it?
22 hours or so.
Oh, just
arrived at 2 to 3 a.m. and then left at maybe 1 a.m.
Around midnight, a bit maybe after midnight.
And the day before he arrived, the North Korean newspaper had the dates there, June 18th to 19th, right?
Oh, yes, yeah, correct.
But he arrived on the calendar day of June 19th. So there was no June 18th except for Moscow time.
Yeah, of course. If it's Moscow time, he could justify that.
Yeah, but then he does also do the same thing to Vietnam, I guess. So he was scheduled for June 19th, 20. And he didn't arrive until the 20th in Vietnam. So we kind of just pushed the whole trip back. And also, I think we have to remember that at least us, maybe some pool reporters might know this, that were on the trip with him that we haven't figured out yet, but we don't know exactly what the schedule was supposed to be. We know that Putin was late, but we don't know how many events were pushed to the next day or so.
And Kim Jong Un came out to the airport to meet him, didn't he?
Yeah, Kim was there. It's so many events. I mean, I don't even know if I can list them off. Like Kim arrived at the airport, or Kim met him at the airport at 3 a.m. But it's important to note that
I wonder if Kim had been kept waiting a long time. I mean, I can't imagine he'd feel too good about that.
Yeah, there were no crowds of people at the airport or the streets to greet them. So we still don't know if that means that they were brought out and then sent home, or if they just weren't brought out in the first place. But it is, I think we can safely assume that they did plan to have the crowds greeting them, lining all the streets of Pyongyang. But throughout all the coverage so far, you can't really see Kim expressing like annoyance or anything. Kim, if he was angry about it, we don't know. So, yeah.
And visually, I was really struck by the photographs that I saw of very large banners featuring a portrait of Vladimir Putin by himself, hung by the roadside, presumably where the motorcade of Putin would take him when he arrived in Pyongyang. And I couldn't remember a recent time where any foreign leader was pictured alone without perhaps being together with Kim Jong Un. That was really quite a visual image, a visually striking image. What did you think of that, Anton?
Yeah, indeed, it was very Ceausescu style dictatorship move. Yeah, indeed. And I would say that Pyongyang definitely was preparing for Putin. Of course, they put those huge banners, sometimes several stories high, and they also kept pretty much all the windows in all buildings along the motorway lit up late at night. So of course, it also provided some visual effects to the arrival.
Putin must have encountered like 1,000 photos of himself in his 22-hour journey through Pyongyang.
Wow.
They gave him paintings of himself. They had portraits on buildings.
Physically gave it to him. Oh.
On the roadside, they gave him a bust of his face.
Wow.
They created his face out of the human pixel cards made by kids at the concert. It was just continuously flattering.
Right.
I don't know how flattering that is. If you're a normal, regular, let's say, person, that would be quite awkward to see that many faces of you in the street.
Flattering Putin.
Yeah.
Makes sense. That's kind of their whole view.
Was there a sign that Putin was happy? He was pleased by all this, by this flattery?
Well, why don't you do some body language reading?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't go that far. I'm not like a physiognomist or anything like that. I would say that Putin looked pretty content, but several things actually stood out. For example, during his meetings, he was mumbling a bit too much. He couldn't read sometimes of the paper that he was reading, like during some open sessions with Kim Jong Un, and it looked a little bit that I cannot make any conclusions, but I think that the guy has definitely aged over time. I can see that.
Well, I wonder what all this means for South Korea. Whether in any of the speeches or in the agreement was South Korea mentioned at all?
Not at all. But again, we know that Putin previously thanked and kind of appreciated, at least acknowledged South Korea for not getting involved in the Ukraine conflict. And I suppose the Kremlin's line right now is to maintain more or less amicable ties with both Koreas. But of course, we will see how it unfolds.
Yeah, and there was a Lavrov statement once he got back, or I don't know where he was, but he made a short comment, something to the effect of, if you're trying to insinuate that this is a bad thing for anyone, like just South Korea or anyone, that means you have plans to attack. So as long as you don't want to like attack either one of us, everything's going to be cool. This is just defensive in nature. So that's kind of the line. And we do have to wait to see if South Korea reacts in any way. Because what was Yoon saying as recently as last week, Yoon is also not cold on Russia, right? So.
Right. Well,
Lavrov basically said you got to read the article very carefully and see for yourself that it doesn't pose any threat to anyone. Well, but of course he will say that. Kind of expected.
Yeah, in the other articles of the agreement, is there a lot of focus put on economic or trade cooperation? I wonder whether the military really, the military agreement really the big part of it, or should we be looking at other areas?
Well, the agreement is called, it's a treaty on a comprehensive strategic partnership, right? So of course it encompasses certain elements of economics. This agreement wasn't the only one that the two leaders signed. There was also one agreement on healthcare and the other one on cooperation on the construction of the motor bridge across the Tumangan River. So economics did take certain part of the deal. And definitely they're going to pay close attention to it. And the article in the treaty itself does have an article stipulating that the two sides are looking to expand their economic ties as well.
Okay, so you mentioned a new bridge connecting Russia to North Korea over the Tumen
I think
River.
that was the only concrete project named, right? Because not anything like naming a new special economic zone or anything like that, right?
They mentioned that they would like to explore the possibility and work on this, on the establishing of economic zones, but this was really indeed the only specific project that was mentioned.
And we know how that goes typically when it's not concrete yet. And on the bridge, they were talking about that bridge very specifically, having multiple meetings back to back, very high level, not Kim Jong Un, but having high level meetings about it. And I think actually Kim Jong Un mentioned this maybe in 2019 when he met Putin. I'd have to go back and check, but I know for sure they were talking about that bridge a lot back in 2018, 2019, and nothing ever happened, not digging anything as far as we can see in satellite imagery. So, and China wants to move their ships through that little channel that they're blocked off on the Tumen River. So maybe they have to negotiate with China about the bridge too. Who knows?
I would even add that this project has been in talks for like decades now, basically.
That's interesting. Okay, so it's nothing new
initiative. It's been a while since they actually started talking about it. But in the 90s, of course, they had some economic problems. Then Putin was trying his very weird dance with the West. North Korea wasn't a priority, and then things started developing very differently. And only now they're sort of like revisiting this project again.
And just to give the background, since we forgot it, so they have a rail bridge that connects the two countries. They only share a very narrow border, which how many miles is it? How many kilometers?
40 kilometers.
And they only have a rail bridge and no road bridge. So they keep on talking about wanting to build a road bridge next to the rail bridge.
And this road bridge, would it go on the North Korean side? Would it go into Rajin Sonbong, the special economic zone?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's certainly a big step if it does happen. Let's wait and see on that one.
Also depends on North Korea, because China built a bunch of these bridges in the last 10 years and they're not using most of them.
The new
there was famously the bridge to nowhere where the North Korean side wasn't completed for a long time.
More than that too, there's a few of these bridges that they're just not using. So it would have to be backed by a whole lot of actual priority and initiative for it to go anywhere.
How was the whole meeting between Kim and Putin played up in the Rodong Shinmun of the last day or two?
This just came out like a few hours ago, so they were really late to report it. It was like a 14-page report with 11 pages of, 10 different events. They went to, it was a report on Putin going to Kim Il-sung Square. I mean, there's so many little things that happened throughout the 20-something hours. They did an event at Kim Il-sung Square that was set up just like a military parade, but there wasn't a military parade. Some jets flying over. Then they had a banquet. They went to a concert. They took turns driving a new limousine that Putin gifted him in violation of sanctions. They petted horses together. Kim gave him dogs. They exchanged gifts. They gave Putin the Kim Il-sung, what's it called? The Kim Il-sung Hunjang. What's that called?
A medal.
Highest state level award.
Or a commendation.
They had little press conferences. They had the group meeting, the one-on-one meeting. It's just like long day. So that's all just a bunch of fluff language in the Rodong Shinmun about. But
there is one,
and then they printed.
Where did it go?
Yeah, right. And they printed the whole. They printed the whole agreement on an entire page in the Rodong, so the North Korean public will see that. And then so Go on.
There is one place that they were supposed to visit, but actually ended up not going to, and it's the Russian church in Pyongyang, the Russian.
I was just about to ask about the Russian Orthodox Church. You're saying they were supposed to, so it was on the agenda. They were supposed to visit it, but they didn't go there. Any reason
I think we
why not?
don't know for a fact whether or not Kim was supposed to go, but we do know Putin went at night right before he went to the airport. And we just don't know if Kim was scheduled to go or not. But if you think about it, Kim was with him at the airport, and Kim was with him before he went to the church. So it was a choice for Kim Jong Un not to go to the church. And they mentioned it in state media in text, but they didn't show it. And we were like anticipating before it all happened, like, are they going to show, is Kim going to join him in the church? Are they going to show it in domestic state media? And
where was he when Putin was in the church? So
chilling in the car, maybe?
Chilling in the car, or we're waiting outside because the Holy Spirit wouldn't let him in. I don't.
Could be.
Right. How long has there been an Orthodox church in Pyongyang?
For about 20 years. The construction started in 2003 or 2 or 3.
Okay.
And it's been there for a while. It's North Korean priests who were trained in Russia, ordained in Russia, and they serve sermons predominantly, of course, for the Russians who live in Pyongyang, who are actually most of them. It's just diplomats, right?
Yeah. Well, so the service. Did you say the service is mostly run in Russian or in Korean?
The priest, the North Korean priest, speaks Russian, and the whole liturgy is held in Russian. Okay. They even have a required Russian.
And had Putin? Do you know if Putin had ever visited there before on a previous visit to Pyongyang?
Well, he couldn't have because his last visit was in 2000, and the church was constructed years after that. So no, but for example, Kim Jong Un's father, Kim Jong Un, who ordered the construction of the church, he did visit multiple churches and cathedrals in Russia, not only the Orthodox ones, but also he visited one Catholic, I think, cathedral in China.
Okay. Well, I wasn't aware that this was Putin's first visit to North Korea in basically 25 years. So this is such a big occasion, very important to both countries. I wonder, you may not be aware of this, but in Putin's subsequent visit to Vietnam, was there a signing of a similar agreement? I mean, were the two visits
you just got there,
Vietnam
right?
similar?
There are already official statements on the Kremlin's page, but unfortunately, I couldn't get my hands on it yet. So
I think that they're just having the talks in the last few hours, maybe. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested to see if Russia's trying to bring Vietnam into that new multipolar world view that it has.
But I read that, and I'm not, maybe you know better, I just read some analysis from others that it was mostly about existing military relationship in terms of weapons provisions from Russia to Vietnam, and then other economic ties, but that Vietnam does not probably have plans to join an alliance with Russia.
That's true. I would also highly doubt that Vietnam wants to join this security framework, but at the same time, I also saw talks or discussions about Russia reopening its naval base in Vietnam. It's a speculation. I don't know whether it's going to happen or not. But if it does,
also speculation about doing that in North Korea. Right?
Yeah, but I do believe that if Russia chooses to open a naval base, Vietnam would make more sense given its prior ties during the Vietnam War and the existence of that base and the infrastructure that used to be there back in the day. So
why do they need a North Korean naval base, or on the West Sea?
On the West Sea, probably that's the best one, right? Because it's closer to China.
I would certainly be surprised if that does happen, since the US and Vietnam have done a lot of work and a lot of talking on growing their own military relationship and discuss bilateral security and military cooperation on various levels. That would be quite a strange turnaround to see Russia reopening a naval base in Vietnam again.
Well, it definitely will be a challenge for Vietnam, but I think Vietnam has a whole arsenal of things how to balance interests of the, let's say, can I call them great powers?
Yeah. Gosh, well, this is it's really fascinating to watch all this, and I imagine there'll be a lot more stories coming out on NK News and NK Pro giving analysis. Do we already have some good analysis pieces available for our listeners to go and check out on NK Pro?
Yeah, there are a few at least. I think there's like probably already 8 stories or so on this whole summit. So there.
I would highly recommend checking our colleague Shreyas Reddy's story on economic cooperation between Russia and North Korea and how they're trying to establish shadow economy. Also, please do check out Shadow Carol's article analyzing the summit and the agreements, and of course our coverage of the agreement itself, of meetings, etc. That should give you some idea of how it went.
Yeah, for subscribers to NK Pro, you could find Pyongyang Power Play, What to Make of Kim and Putin's Comprehensive New Treaty. That's an analysis written by Jacco Carol, so that's definitely worth checking out. All right, gentlemen, any further thoughts about what we've seen or what we may see in the next couple of days on this? Any last
I'm just
thoughts to leave us with?
You know, this is a giant media story, world media, but how do North Korea's adversaries react? Do they then say that, oh, we have to make a new approach? This is the biggest threat to the United States in the world, or whatever it was, or is it just going to be managing business as usual? So I'll be watching for that. And we have a lot left that's happening. All this stuff going on at the inter-Korean border, from the balloon saga to the incursions over the MDL, loudspeakers, right, all that, and then the U.S. ROK military drills in the coming months, and how North Korea will react to that. What North Korea is doing at the West Sea, NLL, the maritime border. So all sorts of stuff. Nothing's cooling down. Yeah,
I'm having very mixed feelings about all this, with Russia becoming very important to the Korean Peninsula. It's been a while since we've seen this for the last time. So I would love to see what those Russian people think inside Russia about this growing alliance, and whether regular Russians actually perceive North Korea worthy of this alliance, and whether it's a reputational blow, or is it a prestigious thing for Russia to have such an ally.
Yes. So hopefully you'll be writing some stories about that, about the Russian reaction in the next few days. I'll be looking forward to reading those. Great. Well, I think that's where we'll leave it for today. Thank you very much, Anton and Colin, for coming on this quick and mini roundtable to talk about the visit of Vladimir Putin to Pyongyang with Kim Jong Un. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jacco.
Thank you.
See you again soon. Get to the core of Korean insights with Korea Pro's exclusive Seoul event series. Join us for gatherings that bring you face-to-face with key opinion leaders, journalists, and experts on South Korean affairs for dinner, drinks, and more. Engage in deep discussions on political, economic, and social issues at special venues across Seoul. From dinners with Korea Pro editors to insightful conversations with renowned guests, each event promises a unique blend of expertise and networking. Immerse yourself in the pulse of Korea. Register now at events.koreapro.org. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our podcast episode for today. Our thanks go to Brian Betts and Alana Hill for facilitating this episode, and to our post-recording producer genius Gabby Magnuson, who cuts out all the extraneous noises, awkward silences, bodily functions, and fixes the audio levels. Thank you, and listen again next time.